welcome to a new video. I'm Alexa, Disventure Camp, and today we're going to be doing What If Fiore Was Never Evil? First off, just some quick ground things. First off, when I say Fiore was never evil, this means she just never had a villainous personality. It never happened. She's just this innocent little 6-year-old girl. That's the main change, and you'd be shocked at how much it actually does change in the series. It is insane. Without further ado, let's actually just get into it, because other than knowing that, you really don't need to know too much. Let's get into it! So, first off, none of her act would again be an act, and it'd be the real her, which means Drew and Fiore kind of wholesome friendship beginning. Anyway, not much changes yet, since Fiore's still acting here, and they still swap Gabby and Fiore, because even with Fiore not being evil, they still swapped her, due to the fact she really couldn't do challenges. But anyways, challenge-wise, Fiore would still continue, again, with the same acting. However, I think T would actually manage to win here, since Fiore wouldn't want to swap the team flags in this universe. You could argue, well, how does team flags make her evil? The original reason she actually swapped the team flags was because she wanted some revenge on Teal Team for voting her off. The literal confessional she has after it works is that, how does it feel to be humiliated by like a 6-year-old or something like that? So I do think that the entire reason she did it was for revenge, of course to win the challenge, but mostly for revenge. So I don't think she would do it in this universe if she was actually, and I don't think she'd be smart enough in this universe to do it. But anyways, I do think that Teal Team would be rewarded in this universe and Purple Team loses, and since this is a nomination, we can keep on moving. Anyway, in episode 2, most things stay the same. Alec and Ellie, of course, form their little alliance. This is important for later on in the story, though. Again, moving on, though. Challenge-wise, Lil is an idiot. Okay, I'm sorry, but why did she put Will with Fiore when Ashley was right there? Like, I'm sorry, but if she put Will... Okay, we're getting really off track here, but still in the challenge, Fiore would not blow up at Will here, so they would again be on the log together. I don't think Fiore would lie and go off, but I do think they still force them to go with Will on the log for some reason. I don't know, but again, he wouldn't go on it whatsoever if Fiore even tried to convince him. She'd probably get very annoyed with him, though. Regardless, she'd get very annoying, but still. And eventually, I think Ashley would run up and check on what happened, because Will's like, the world's gonna end. That's what he kept saying, because he had to go on the darn log. Anyway, once Teal wins or something. Teal's obviously just gonna win this challenge due to Will not being able to do it. Anyway, I think Ellie and Alec would vote for Will due to the fact that he did not do the challenge and just lost everybody. Obviously, I don't think Nick's gonna actually vote Will, because in this universe, remember, the entire reason Nick did it is because he thought Will screamed at a 6-year-old child. But in this universe, he just knows that he lost the challenge for everybody, which obviously that isn't good, but you're just going to say that just vote with Will this time, and these 5, Will, Ashley, Lil, Fiore, and Nick vote for Alec out, and Alec and Ellie vote for Will. But anyways, Alec is out of here, and the reason I'm saying they vote Alec over Ellie is in canon that is what happened, because Ashley chose to vote between Ellie or Alec because she wasn't going to vote for Fiore, Lil, or Nick, because they, of course, had an alliance. Fiore was like a little sister to her, and she wasn't going to vote Will, so she voted Alec. So I'm just going to assume that's the same for everybody there. And we move on to the next episode, episode 3. So Gabby would go to Ellie, and I think instead of Ellie being like, yeah, I don't need the idol right now, she'd take that idol. She'd just take it immediately. She'd be like, yeah, can I just have it now? Because she's in a 5v1 right now. She needs that idol. It's her, like, is the only reason she's gonna stay in that game is that idol, so she'll take it immediately. And of course, Gabby and Ellie just bestie. Anyway, everything on Teal still happens. And we move on to episode... Oh no, we keep moving on to the challenge, though. Purple is easily winning this. Literally everyone on Purple does their fear. Ashley would do the fire thing. Will needs character development, so he can do his fear with support from Ashley because Wishley. Will, of course, does her fear originally. Nick does his fear originally. Fiore would do her fear. I'm not gonna switch her fear to something else, because how am I meant to say, because Fiore isn't evil, she's gonna be fearful of whatever. No, I'm not gonna change it. I don't really see the point. And Ellie, I think, would be even more so inclined to do her fear, because it's a 5v1 right now. She needs that immunity. She needs that. And remember, on Teal, Jake, Tom, and Miriam don't do their fears. So that immediately means Purple is winning this challenge. And so on Teal, anyway, Ellie would also have multiple confessionals, this is really important for later, about how she's broke, she has minimum wage jobs, and she needs that money at the end. She'll have multiple confessionals about the regret, and just she knows she needs it. She's willing to do stuff important. Anyway, Drew would still get robbed because Fiore did have literally no effect on his elimination. Gret did, therefore he still just goes this episode. Episode 4. So I think instead of Fiore, Ellie would burn Ashley, Will, and Nick's steps and blame it on Lil because Lil's the leader of the alliance and she wants to cause conflict, and that's what she thinks of doing. Obviously, it's stealing Fiore's idea, but what else was Ellie supposed to do? She needs this money. She needs it to get into her dreams of fashion school, and of course is willing to do anything. You can obviously say maybe she come up with something else, yeah, but I feel like giving Fiore's original move to Ellie makes a lot of sense in this universe because Ellie is the only person on this team now to have any villainous tendencies, so she obviously is the only one to take the purple team antagonist role. Anyway, so Ellie would lie about saying, oh, it had to be Lil or something, and of course this causes crossfire. I think Will and Ashley would be on Lil's side, because she's like, why would they do that? And Will too. And then we over here, because Nick's an idiot, and then I think Fiore would also believe Ellie, because I don't think Fiore, as a little 6-year-old innocent child now, would think that, yeah, somebody would actually lie about something like that. I think she's too innocent in this world to think that. So, in the end, 3v3 on the purple. Anyway, so the duos on the canoe obviously remains the same for teal, with literally nothing changing. Teal is just being the same as it was. Purple, on the other hand, these are actually the duos. On accident made the same order. But Ashley and Will, because Wishley, and I feel like, I'm sorry, but I think Ashley would choose to go with Will and just hang out, even disregarding earlier. Anyway, I think Nick would just choose to go with Fiore again for some reason, who even knows. And then so Ellie and Lil are stuck on a canoe together. So obviously Fiore and Nick would chat about what happened in the morning, and Nick would continue to push the drive that Lil actually would do it, and that he believes Ellie. Anyway, Ellie and Lil, I think Lil would be like, Ellie, why did you lie? And continue confronting her until she just admits that she did do it, but she had to do it for the money to get her dreams to fashion school, and she's sorry for what she did, but she doesn't see any other way because it's a 5v1 right now. And Lil would feel bad for her. I do think Lil would feel horrible for Ellie, but also no, and still be mad at her. But anyway, so the duos with the fighting, obviously I think Jill still gets the advantage because Nick cannot paddle for the life of him. He forced a 6-year-old child to paddle the entire canoe. What the heck? So the duos are, we're gonna switch the first duo to Tom versus Will instead of Tom versus Alec. So, and I think Will would lose here. I think Tom would still manage to win, especially given his spy training. Again, we know that he lost. If Alec lost, I don't think Will's winning. Anyway, the next duo was, the fight was Ellie and Gret. Ellie just got demolished. I'm shocked that Grabby did not punish Gret for this in any regard. Shocked, but I guess at that point their alliance was still way too loyal for her to want to get any revenge. The next duo to fight was Lil and Gabby, and of course in canon, Gabby loses, so she loses here. And then the next duo was Dan versus Ashley, and then we have the final battle, which is Jake versus Nick. In this universe, remember that Fiore told Nick to step on Jake, and he listened, but in this universe that wouldn't happen because Fiore's, again, innocent and not evil here. So I do think that Nick would somehow pull something stupid and trigger Jake's anger, because it is Nick, of all people we're talking about here. Maybe feels Old Plumber-esque, but I do think that Jake did have a bit of an upper hand too in the battle. So yeah, we're gonna, since Purple lost, let's go over how the votes would go. I think Fiore would vote for Nick because she doesn't want to vote for Lil because she doesn't really know what happened here. She's worried why Nick just immediately is trusting Ellie right off the bat or something like that, and I think that makes sense. Ellie and Nick would vote for Lil, and these three, but Ellie has her totem. Lil's gone because of that, so Gabby's totem coming in clutch. Anyway, episode 5. In the morning on Purple, Nick would go up to Ellie and thank her for editing out Lil, which she would say she needed to go. I think Ellie would just feel really guilty about all of this, but she'd say, yeah, and it'd just be like, she'd be guilty and regret it, but still. Will and Ashley would be plotting to get Ellie out next and somehow convince Nick that what Ellie said was a lie, or somehow try to get him back on their side. And Fiore would not know what to do, what to believe here, since it was all really a blur to her, because in this universe, she is just stuck in between all of this. Anyways, challenge time, teal. Y'all know it is the same as canon. Purple, I think Nick and Fiore would try to cook. And Ellie. And Ellie, Ashley, and Will would go and try to find stuff. Ashley and Will would work together in this challenge because Wishly! Y'all know me, I am a Wishly fan, and therefore Wishly. Anyway, Ellie and Gabby meet up with mostly the same scene, and Ellie saying that Gabby saved her, and everything just... Gabby and Ellie just... Anyway, Purple still loses because I do not think Nick and Fiore can manage to cook something better than Miriam and Jake. Let's be realistic here. And so I do think that Gabby would immediately be like, I am going over to that team. And then Gabby, of course, does her iconic surprise. But anyway, vote-wise. So, obviously, I think Ellie's gonna tell Nick to vote for Will, and he would listen because, like, for believing Lil and causing the first challenge loss, which, of course... Nick would be like, okay, that's fine, I'm down with that. So obviously Will and Ashley are gonna vote Ellie. There is no changing their minds on that, let's be real. So I think Ellie would go to the innocent little child over here and manipulate her. Look, I get it, maybe this is bad character, but Ellie is willing to do literally anything for money, I think. So I think she would go, and would Fiore believe it? I think she would. Look, I get it. It's like, why would you trust Ellie over here? However, she has no proof to believe against what she said, and I get it, she doesn't want to vote Will originally. However, I do think she'd be willing to vote for Will due to the fact she was probably extremely annoyed with him due to the first challenge. Look, I get it. Even in her innocent state, she wouldn't bash out, but let's be real, I think she would still be very annoyed. I think Manny would just be very annoyed at him just not doing it, so I do see that as a possibility, and Fiore would probably not think that Ellie would lie about something like this. Barney, why would she lie about that? Even if she doesn't fully believe it, Nick has been continuously convincing her over the episodes, and even in this episode specifically, he continued to try and convince her to vote with trying to say that, yeah, they weren't lying. And of course, she does view Ashley as like a sister, so I don't think, or something like that. So I don't think she'd be willing to vote for Ashley, but I think she'd also be willing to vote for Will. Maybe she's a little jealous. I don't know. Maybe. That could be another reason, but still, I do think that's happening. And obviously, Gabby comes over here, and I think Ellie would be like, vote for Ashley, please, and thank you. And why would Gabby go against that? She'd be trying to get Ashley out because Ashley and Will are the targets, and if she's getting these two to vote for Will, she can just get out Ashley here too. Which means I think that Will and Ashley are gone this episode, the Wishley double elimination. Ellie has, well, anyway. We move on to episode 6, which obviously is a non-elimination, but I'm still going to review it here because, again, it does matter a bit to the story. In the morning, Nick and Ellie were chatting, Fiore joining in. Maybe it's kind of awesome, but of course Ellie would be on her guilty because, of course, she's guilty. Challenge-wise, Nick would get immunity for Purple, I think, because in the, of course, original Fiore tranquilized, and Ellie loses too, so, and Nick needs some spotlight, let's be real, this entire time he's just been seen as kind of an idiot, so giving him a bit of focus would be nice for his character, and so he can just get that immunity. For Teal Team, we all know it's gonna be the same, so Tom, Jake, and Miriam can't get it, Dan gets, and then Gabby goes iconic off on Grat, and then just Ellie comes up and Gabby and Ellie just talk. It's just wholesome. Anyway, since Ellie told him about Lil and Fiore did vote Nick in the earlier episode or something, I don't know if Nick would figure it out immediately because it's Nick we're talking about here. He did cause an entire 4-person alliance to just immediately get out on his, even if it's indirect, but he still caused it. But you get what I mean? It's just like, obviously, Nick votes for Fiore, and of course Teal votes Greta, which means they swap teams. That little twist comes in, so we're gonna delete episode. And we're on to episode 7 now. So episode 7, Fiore would go to Teal and say hello to everybody with her revealing what happened. And Dan is like, we need to vote her off next because of course he's like that. Anyway, Gret would go to Purple and Ellie throwing a rock at Gret because just getting revenge for Gabby is just yes, and yeah. And yeah. So in the morning, we flip to the morning. I don't think Fiore's gonna give Jake any advice. She's 6, for goodness sakes. Obvious, but she's not evil anymore, so I don't think she's as smart because of that, because her evil side is the one that gave the... You get my point? So I do think Miriam instead tells Jake that advice when what Ellie told him, which I am shocked she didn't originally, but of course, plot reasons, so it's a bit shifted here. Anyways, challenge-wise, I'm thinking Ellie would do the, being on a wheel thing, thing instead. I don't know. I think that makes no sense. And of course, Gabby's gonna do the same. I actually think Teal's gonna win this challenge instead of Purple because Dan, I don't think Ellie's gonna sabotage Dan and break his glasses. Maybe, but I don't think she would because she's a good enough position on the team, even if she does really want immunity. I don't think she would think of it. Maybe she would. I don't think she'd actually go through with that because I honestly don't get how none of the, because glasses are made of glass, of course, so wouldn't any of the, you know what I mean, there, so I don't think what would happen, I don't think that would happen, and therefore Purple Team loses again because they can't ever win. That's too much of a challenge for them. Except in episode 3. But anyways, I think Red is easily eliminated because Ellie is too loyal to Nick to really just go against it, and Nick is too loyal to Ellie because these two at this point, Nick is Ellie's loyal pawn, so I don't think. Anyways, Gret's done, and plus Ellie needs revenge on some Gret. So, merge time. On to episode 8 with our merge. So, challenge-wise, obviously, in the morning, I do think Ellie and Gabby are just hanging out just for uniting because they're just... And anyways, challenge-wise, this is the complicated... How am I meant to assume who wins here? But anyway, Fiore, I don't think is going to come up with that genius strategy anymore because she's not evil and she's not going to lie to these people. Also, do note, this is very important for later, since the Teal team never lost, and since they never really voted off Ellie, this alliance between Gabby, Dan, and Miriam still stands. So that is going to come into play in a second. It will. But I don't think... I can't really assume who's gonna win this because, like, how am I meant to? I don't think Fiore's gonna win, though. I think they'd all target Fiore. I know that seems mean, but Tom and Jake at this point, I don't think would target each other yet. Miriam, these two aren't gonna ever target each other, and then Ellie's not gonna let Nick get targeted by Gabby or something like that. Maybe Nick gets targeted. And then Dan's in the alliance. So Fiore's just the outcast here. She's the only one who's not connected to anybody really that much. And the only people she was connected to voted her, so ouch. Which means I don't think Fiore's winning. Who winning specifically, I don't really know because this is the most complicated challenge. Because I'm not meant to be like, oh, they think this, they think that. It would take forever. So we're just gonna assume Fiore doesn't win, one of the others just does. Votes would go this way. So, of course, as mentioned earlier, this alliance still stands. And since this alliance still is standing, we have the connections. We know Miriam is never going to let Jake and Tom get voted. So they're immediately safe. Gabby would never let Ellie get voted. And since Ellie is the only option here, I'm sure these three or these five or whatever would not mind. And I think Ellie would be like, let's not vote Nick, let's vote the child, because Ellie, of course, has Nick as an ally, and she doesn't want him to go. Obviously, they might vote Nick, maybe, if they want to vote Nick, but I think they managed to convince to vote Fiore instead due to the fact, obviously, she's a complete outcast, and she can't be used for any form of voting, while Nick maybe can. Maybe a bit of a flawed logic here, and maybe they'd want to vote Nick more, but I think Gabby would be like, let's please vote Fiore instead. I don't think the confessionals review here, I don't think that would really matter much in this universe, because Fiore's not evil anymore. The only thing that might happen is Ellie being revealed for lying, which I think would bring a lot of drama, but I don't think she's gonna be like in the confessional being like, I regret lying about Lil or something like that. I regret lying about and everything like that. Maybe. I don't see it though. Of Ellie doing that. I don't see it personally. But maybe. I obviously think, I'm so sorry, Fiore. I'm so sorry for voting you like twice or something like that. I think that would happen, but either way, maybe. But anyway, I think Fiore is gone. We move on to episode 9, Zombie Apocalypse. It's time, morning-wise. We never get that iconic beginning scene where Fiore's telling all their issues to Alec and Gret, because Fiore's not only isn't here, but you see my point. So Miriam and Ellie would be bonding and just chatting. Gabby and Dan would be talking because we need more of this friendship. Tom and Jake have the same scene, and Nick is just existing in this. He's going to his BTA era where he was just forgotten completely. Anyways, and the zombie apocalypse begins. So Ellie and Tom obviously go up to check, and Ellie comes back and is confirmed to be infected. And I think after that, everyone is done because Gabby is here. First off, Gabby losing Ellie, oh dear gosh, we all know that is not going to end well for anybody here. She would probably go on an actual rampage, destroying everything in her path because Ellie is gone, because that's how Gabby truly, I think that's what would happen, because losing the one person, because she said in her own words, the only person that really made her feel valid, that would not end well. And especially since this is very realistic, I easily think Gabby is winning, easily. There is no way anybody else can beat her. I don't care about the weapon she has, I just know that she is going to win for that simple reason. So, with that happening, I think the second, she sees this VR, she's gonna go hug Ellie, because it's Gabby and Ellie. And then we move on to the voting. So, I think they're all gonna vote Nick. Ellie would be a lot more against it than anybody else, though, being like, Gabby, we need to get one of these three out because they're going to have majority, because in this universe she really doesn't feel connected to them. Maybe a bit to Miriam, obviously, because she's bonding a bit with her, but in this universe she never really became friends with Jake. She never really became close friends with Tom. Obviously they're on good terms and they're friends, but you know what I mean. She isn't really that close to these people, and Gabby would be like, relax, we can just move on to that next round or something like that, and we still have Dan. So although Ellie is very against the idea because she wants to get it, she'd eventually agree to go majority because, again, she does not want to go against and cause getting in more trouble than she already has gotten herself into during the past. So even if you want to say Nick would get voted in the previous episode, I feel like Fiore would get voted here too, due to the fact not being close with anybody. So you can really interchange these. I do think Nick would make it voted, though. Just me personally. Anyway, episode 10, morning-wise, Ellie and Gabby are just hanging out and being little besties, because Dan just is thinking strategy and thinking about how he needs to they need to get one of these three out ASAP, unless Dan's like, nah, I think he'd be smart enough. But anyway, Jake and Tom and Miriam are just hanging out in the morning. Anyway, challenge-wise, I think Gabby would help out Ellie, and especially being afraid of losing her again, like episode 9 caused her that, and she does not want that to ever happen again. And I'm thinking Ellie would still win this comp, because even if she loses her medals, Gabby might help her, and plus, she got them really quick. Tom is just distracted with the idol the entire time, which in this universe he still does get. That's important for later, y'all. Important for later. So, obviously with Ellie winning immunity, the TL team has to vote one of their own off. I think Ellie would be extremely worried and say that we need to vote one of these three out ASAP, and that Ellie would go get Dan, so with her, and then Gabby can go convince the others to not vote, of course, for Gabby. So, of course, Ellie's off to Dan, or you can obviously flip these roles, but Gabby would talk with them, trying to say not to vote for Gabby, not to vote for her, or you can flip this around and say Ellie would go convince them. Either way, I feel like whoever does, I'm gonna say simplicity for Gabby, and then Ellie goes and talks to Dan, because that's, and I think they'd be more agreeable with Gabby since they've known her from the start, and Ellie they've really barely talked to, except Miriam, and Miriam I think Ellie's a good person too, so she wouldn't. And she thinks Gabby, but she'd obviously vote for Dan, because I think Gabby would convince them, of course, Dan is way too smart for this game, or something like that, along those lines. And then these three would vote for, I think they would vote for Jake, because Jake's the weakest in tiebreaker, so say these three go for Dan. So, obviously this leads to a tiebreaker, and therefore, I think Dan is winning. I know this is what? I used a wheel. To be real with you guys, I used a wheel because Dan would win a strategic challenge and Jake would win a more physical challenge, I think. If Gabby, say they did vote Gabby still, I think if they even still voted Gabby, Gabby would immediately win against Jake in any type of tie, so. But Dan wins here because the wheel said so. And I really can't decide past that, because if it's smart challenge, Dan wins. Physical, Jake wins, so. I can't be this is what the tiebreaker challenge would be, because fun fact, in season 1, they never had a tiebreaker challenge. So I can't be adding my own challenge in here. That's not gonna work, so that's fine. Miriam and Tom would be pissed. They would be so mad that Jake is gone, literal anger. And you can say, why did Tom not use the idol on Jake? Because they never told him where to use the idol. Would they know? I don't know if they would tell Ellie about the idol. We're just gonna assume they really don't, but obviously I think it would be very suspicious. So I would say that Tom is hiding something. Maybe it's an idol or something like that, but Either way, episode 11, Ellie and Gabby just work together in the competition because of course they do, and then Miriam and Tom do, and Dan's just Dan. But I think Dan actually wouldn't manage to win immunity because I think Miriam and Tom would be targeting Ellie and Gabby as to get revenge and avenge Jake. Remember, in this universe, Tom and Jake aren't destroyed because Ellie doesn't go and pull off that lie, and just that never happens here because Fiore never got the chance to start it because she was never, whatever, you get the point. Chain of reactions. So I do think they'd sabotage or try to sabotage Ellie and Gabby, or they'd get into fights and Ellie would maybe go on a speech tangent or something like that, and they would be fighting. And in the meantime, Dan flies under the radar and gains his immunity. So how would this voting go? I think Miriam and Tom would vote for Gabby due to the factor that they betrayed her more so. And they did think Ellie was cool, but they didn't Ellie didn't betray them like Gabby did, you know what I mean? Because they were more originally mad at Gabby than they were at Ellie because, because Gabby was originally in the alliance. You see my point here. So, Gabby, Ellie, and Dan would vote for Tom. However, Tom is not leaving because Tom has his totem. So Tom would play his totem on him this selfless round. You can obviously think maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. Did they ever say when that totem expires? They never said. I'm going to assume it expires at the final 4 like Ria's did because I don't see a reason to be like, nope, it expires at the final 5. But I think he played on himself just to be safe this round, just in case, because what's the point in not using it here? And so we get lucky, get it right, and therefore Gabby is sent home, and the entire, end of episode 8 scene, it happens here instead because Gabby and Ellie. And we move on to episode 12. So the duos I think would be Ellie and Tom and Dan and Miriam, because I think it'd be absolutely hilarious for Dan and Miriam to have to work together very good. But I don't think Miriam's going to throw Dan off a cliff because, again, as much as I do like that reference, I don't see it happening here because I don't think Miriam would get mad at Dan specifically. I don't know what Dan wants to jump. I don't know. I think Ellie and Tom still win because I think they could easily just complete this challenge within. So, and then the tightrope, I do think, again, Ellie and Tom are going to manage to win. It's actually took 4, but you see my point. They'd still manage to win because I think collectively they are stronger than Miriam and Dan. So I think that would work out. You can obviously, so then they do to lunch thing. I don't think that Miriam would suggest to Tom to throw. You could say, why not? First off, Dan did betray them too, so it's not like it's against it. And plus, I do think Miriam could realize that Ellie is desperate and is willing to do what it takes to get that money, to make it farther, to overall go for it. So I do think that she wouldn't really suggest to throw. And then in the next scene, we know how fast Tom made a fire. Ellie and Tom winning. This is too powerful of a duo. Too powerful, I say. But anyways, I think Tom would be like, bring Miriam to the finale. Ellie, you can win easier. And even though Ellie thinks Dan is cool, maybe, again, he is the most bland personality ever. Sorry, Dan fans. Sorry, Dan Nation. But so I do think that would happen. And we have our finalists. When I started making this what if, I thought I was going to literally hate it. I thought I was not going to like this. But I think it's actually cool. I don't dislike this elimination order too much. Am I kind of sad Alec got out that early? Heck yeah. Because we never get to see the Fiore and Alec. We never get to see much of that. But it's an interesting new elimination order. And also, if you're wondering who I would think win this, I personally think Tom would win this. Look, I want to say Ellie would win this. But in this universe, Ellie was kind of the main antagonist. Not too much. There really wasn't much of an antagonistic force due to the fact Fiore isn't evil. So, but I did enjoy making this what if, and I do think it's a cool and interesting scenario. Moving on to the outro. So yeah, that was the what if. Again, I do really like it. Don't know if I like it more than the original, but it is a good elimination order. It's an interesting one too. But anyways, what do you think of the elimination order? I would love to hear it in the comments down below, and I would also love to hear any critiques, because this one in particular, a few of the vote counts were like, what? But anyways, thank you so much for watching today, and I hope to see you next time on the channel. Bye everyone!